Your kind doesn't deserve real money, boy. This fake garbage gets burned." The words, laced with contempt, hung heavy in the air, sharper than the acrid smell of burning paper. Marcus Wellington, immaculate in his tailored suit, a predatory smirk stretching across his face, held a flaming corner of a check aloft. David Williams watched, an unreadable stillness in his dark eyes, as the fire, fed by the bank manager's silver lighter, devoured the crisp paper. The orange glow danced, illuminating Wellington's triumphant sneer and the growing crowd of smartphone-wielding onlookers. A $2.3 million business check. David's check. It buckled, blackened, then disintegrated into a shower of carbonized fragments, fluttering to the pristine marble floor. Wellington dropped the smoldering remains at David's feet, then, with a flourish that reeked of calculated disrespect, ground his Italian leather heel into the ashes, twisting slowly, eyes locked onto David's. The digital clock above the teller lines glowed 2:48 p.m. 12 minutes until a critical board meeting. 12 minutes, and this man was celebrating the public destruction of what he perceived as a fake fortune. David's hand, a ghost of a movement, started towards his jacket pocket, then paused, dropping back to his side. The humiliation deepened, but something else, colder and far more dangerous, flickered behind his composed facade. This was no mere banking error. This was an act of arrogant, dehumanizing judgment, and Marcus Wellington had just invited a reckoning he couldn't possibly imagine. The opulent lobby of First National Bank hummed with the muted symphony of commerce, the rustle of papers, the soft clicks of keyboards, the distant murmur of hushed conversations. Sunlight, filtered through grand arched windows, spilled across polished marble floors, reflecting off gleaming brass fixtures. Every detail, from the towering floral arrangements to the meticulously dressed staff, screamed wealth, power, and exclusivity. But to David Williams, it felt like an echo chamber of assumptions. He had walked in precisely at 2:30 p.m., intentionally dressed down. Faded jeans, a comfortable gray hoodie, white sneakers, an ensemble designed for anonymity, for observation. He wanted to see how this particular branch, one of many under the vast umbrella of Williams Capital Group, treated its ordinary customers. He approached the main counter, a casual confidence in his posture that few noticed beneath the seemingly unassuming attire. His $250,000 Swiss watch, nestled discreetly beneath his sleeve, and the subtle, knowing glint in his eyes were easily overlooked by those blinded by superficiality. Marcus Wellington, the branch manager, was a man who lived and breathed appearances. His bespoke suit, the perfectly knotted silk tie, the expensive Italian leather shoes, each piece a testament to his own self-importance. He was in the middle of a rather loud, self-congratulatory conversation with a well-heeled client near the investment desk when he spotted David. A quick, dismissive scan from head to toe, a flicker of disdain in his eyes, and Wellington had David categorized. Another time waster. Another hopeful trying to cash a fraudulent check. He knew their type. David had patiently waited his turn, holding the folded check loosely in his hand. When a teller directed him to Wellington's office, he had felt a familiar prickle of irritation. This was unnecessary, but he acquiesced, a silent test being set in motion. Wellington greeted him with a condescending smile, a practiced, almost theatrical politeness that barely masked his contempt. He took the check, his manicured fingers barely touching David's, and his eyes, rather than focusing on the impressive numbers, darted to David's casual attire. The smile tightened. "And what exactly is this, sir?" Wellington had asked, his voice dripping with barely concealed skepticism. "A new art project? A child's fantasy?" David simply stated, "It's a business check, Mr. Wellington, my quarterly dividend." The manager's laugh had been short, sharp, and entirely without humor. "A dividend? From whom, pray tell? The Tooth Fairy? I don't see how someone dressed like that would be receiving a check of this magnitude. This is clearly a forgery, a very, very poor attempt at one." David's composure had remained unwavering. "It's legitimate." Wellington, enjoying his moment of perceived superiority, had then reached for his silver lighter. The crowd swelled. Like moths to a flame, customers and staff were drawn to the spectacle unfolding in the bank's pristine lobby. The acrid smell of burnt paper now permeated the sophisticated air, an unwelcome intruder in the temple of finance. 3 customers, phones aloft, captured every detail, their screens glowing like digital campfire sparks. A blonde woman, perched near a marble pillar, live-streamed the entire event, her whispered commentary growing more breathless with each passing moment. "Oh my God, he burned it! Savage manager! Hashtag bank check trending!" she breathlessly narrated, her viewer count climbing at an alarming pace. 47, 156, 312, then 48. The digital comments flooded her screen, a torrent of emojis and exclamations. "Holy smokes! Boss move of the century! Justice for banks!" Wellington, basking in the glow of his sudden celebrity, kicked at the smoldering ash pile with his expensive Italian shoe, scattering the remains further across the polished floor. Each deliberate movement was a performance, a grand gesture of authority. "Everyone, look at this masterpiece," he announced, his voice booming with theatrical satisfaction, cutting through the murmurs of the growing crowd. "Did you see how I handled that fake check? Burned it right in front of him. Problem solved." He turned his gaze back to David, a cruel glint in his eyes. "You walk into my bank wearing clothes from Goodwill with a fake check bigger than most people's annual salaries. Thought you could fool us?" He punctuated his sentence by grinding his heel once more, pulverizing the remaining fragments into a fine powder. Behind the counter, Sarah Mitchell, the assistant manager, shifted uncomfortably. A nagging feeling, a professional intuition, tightened in her gut. She glanced at David's eerily calm face, then at the ashes, and then back at Wellington's triumphant display. "Marcus, maybe we should—" she began, her voice tentative. "Quiet, Sarah," Wellington snapped, cutting her off mid-sentence. He was too caught up in his viral moment to entertain doubts. He pointed a dismissive finger at David. "Sir, what's your real name? And don't give me some fake identity to match that worthless check I just incinerated for everyone to witness." David remained motionless, the burnt fragments clinging to his white sneakers like tiny black burrs. The weight of Wellington's arrogance, the collective judgment of the crowd, pressed in on him. Yet a peculiar sense of detachment settled over him. This wasn't just about him anymore. This was a stark, unforgiving tableau of systemic prejudice, played out live for thousands to see. He knew what he held in his jacket pocket, the identifiers of a world Wellington couldn't comprehend. He reached slowly, deliberately, for his identification, a platinum Amex black card peeking from his worn leather wallet. Before David's fingers could fully grasp the wallet, Wellington, quick as a hawk snatching prey, lunged forward and snatched it. He held it high above his head, a trophy gleaming in the bank's fluorescent lights. "Well, well, well," he crowed, waving the wallet like a flag of victory. "Stolen credit cards, too. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got ourselves a complete criminal package here. Fake checks, stolen cards, probably fake ID coming next." The crowd buzzed with renewed excitement, phones zooming in on the wallet. A teenage girl with purple hair from the ATM line was already uploading to TikTok. "Bank manager burns fake check. Fire beats fraud. Manager is savage. Hashtag bank burns check. Got justice." The security guard, a burly man named Tom, had been speaking urgently into his radio. "Yeah, we definitely need backup. Fraud suspect with destroyed evidence and possible stolen property." He looked at David with a hardened gaze, ready to intervene. It was then, amidst the growing chaos, that David finally spoke. His voice, deep and resonant, cut through the clamor, maintaining an unnaturally calm tone that contrasted sharply with the rising tension. "Mr. Wellington, I'd like my wallet back, please. When the police arrive, you can explain to them where you really got it." Wellington laughed, a theatrical, condescending sound. Pockets the wallet with theatrical flourish. "Oh, I'll explain everything to the police, all right? And I'll be sure to tell them how I had to destroy your forged check for evidence preservation." He flashed a triumphant grin at the live streamer, who angled her phone to catch his dramatic pronouncements. The digital wall clock ticked to 2:52 p.m. David glanced at it, and for the first time, a subtle shift, a barely perceptible tightening around his eyes, hinted at the pressure he felt. A flicker of something, perhaps genuine concern, or maybe just a well-concealed amusement, crossed his face. "Oh, running late for your next scam?" Wellington sneered, gesturing dramatically at the pitiful pile of ashes. "Don't worry, you won't be going anywhere soon. See that pile of ashes on my floor? That's what happens to fraud in Marcus Wellington's bank." David's phone, forgotten in his pocket, buzzed repeatedly, urgent calls he was pointedly ignoring. The sound, however, drew Wellington's attention. "Turn that off," he snapped. "Your accomplices can wait." The live stream viewer count surged past 650. Comments exploded across social media. He literally torched it! Ashes to ashes, fraud to fraud. The video was rapidly being shared across Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Wellington straightened his silk tie, smoothed his hair, and reveled in his viral moment. This is exactly why we maintain strict security protocols. People like this individual think they can waltz in here with fake paper and fool hardworking, honest Americans. Sarah Mitchell, the assistant manager, shifted uncomfortably behind her counter, her gaze flitting between the smoldering ash pile and David's eerily serene expression. Her professional instincts screamed that something was profoundly wrong. The elderly woman in the Chanel suit, however, continued to nod approvingly, whispering to her companion about finally seeing some backbone in customer service. A heavy-set businessman near the window muttered loudly, "Should have called the cops first, but burning it definitely sends the right message to his kind." 3 more customers joined the growing circle, phones out, recording everything. The bank's normal Tuesday afternoon business had ground to a complete halt, replaced by this impromptu theater of public judgment. David's eyes, calm and assessing, drifted momentarily to a first-class boarding pass peeking from his jacket pocket. Chicago to Tokyo, departing tomorrow morning. A small, telling detail, unnoticed by Wellington, who was far too busy performing for his captive audience and the expanding digital crowd. Tom, the lead security guard, approached, gesturing towards the plush leather chairs near the window. "Sir, please move to the seating area and wait for the authorities." "Actually," David said quietly, his gaze lingering on the burned remains of his check, a subtle inflection of regret in his tone, "I believe there's been a significant misunderstanding here." Wellington threw his head back and laughed, a loud, derisive bray. "The only misunderstanding," he announced, ensuring his voice carried to every corner of the bank and, he hoped, across the internet, "is you thinking that a pathetic fake check would work in my establishment?" The digital clock now read 2:55 p.m. Wellington turned to address his audience, both physical and virtual. "This, ladies and gentlemen, is what happens when we stay vigilant and protect our community. Burn the fraud, protect the innocent, and never let criminals think they can outsmart honest bankers." A murmur of strong approval rippled through the crowd. Multiple phones continued recording David's remarkably composed reaction. David allowed the security guards to guide him toward the seating area. But as he moved, a subtle shift occurred in his expression. He looked down at the burned, scattered remnants of his check, then directly at Wellington, a faint, almost imperceptible curve playing on his lips. It was a look of genuine amusement, as if he understood a cosmic joke no one else was privy to. He subtly checked his expensive Swiss watch, a detail still unnoticed by the mesmerized crowd. Exactly 5 minutes until his board meeting began. "Sarah, get over here immediately!" Wellington commanded, his voice echoing across the marble lobby with theatrical authority, pulling his assistant manager from her uneasy observations. "You need to witness how real fraud prevention works in the field." Sarah Mitchell approached reluctantly, her designer heels clicking rhythmically against the pristine floor where David's burned check fragments still scattered like black confetti. She stared down at the ash pile, then shifted her gaze to David's unnaturally calm face, something gnawing at her professional instincts, something that stubbornly refused to align with Wellington's narrative. "Take detailed notes for your training file," Wellington continued pompously, pointing dramatically at the charred remains. "This is absolutely textbook criminal behavior. Fake check, stolen wallet, probably counterfeit identification documents. Next, I burned the primary evidence before he could destroy it himself or pass it to an accomplice." The live stream audience had exploded exponentially to over 1,200 viewers, the numbers climbing by the second. Comments streamed faster than human eyes could process. "This is absolutely wild!" "Manager is a complete legend!" "Black dude got totally owned!" "Someone call the FBI immediately!" "This is better than Netflix!" The blonde woman filming adjusted her angle expertly to capture both David's remarkably composed face and the dramatic ash pile simultaneously. A second security guard arrived, breathing heavily, having rushed across the building. "What's the exact situation here, Tom?" he asked his colleague. "Major fraud attempt in progress," the first guard responded authoritatively, nodding toward David. "The manager successfully burned the counterfeit check. Suspects also carrying multiple stolen credit cards." Wellington's chest swelled visibly with pride. "That's absolutely correct, officer. See those ashes scattered across my floor? That was a $2.3 million fraudulent check. Can you even begin to believe the sheer audacity? 3 teenagers near the overpriced coffee station abandoned their $5 lattes entirely to film, one immediately uploading to Instagram stories with multiple fire emojis. Bank manager literally burns scammer's check in real time. Savage manager and hammered bank burns check. Instant justice had viral. David sat calmly in the leather chair as instructed, but his posture remained strangely relaxed, confident rather than defeated. His expensive Swiss watch caught the overhead fluorescent light as he checked the time with practiced ease. 2:57 p.m., exactly 3 minutes remaining. You seem remarkably calm for someone who just got caught red-handed, Wellington observed, circling David slowly like a shark sensing blood. Most criminals panic completely when their elaborate scam falls apart spectacularly. Do they really? David responded quietly, his deep voice maintaining an eerily calm tone as his eyes, full of subtle intelligence, followed Wellington's theatrical movements. "Oh, look everyone, he actually speaks," Wellington announced triumphantly to his growing audience of customers and online viewers. "Ladies and gentlemen, the sophisticated criminal has something intelligent to say. Please, by all means, enlighten us all with your creative excuses and fabricated stories." The elderly Chanel customer moved closer, her equally well-dressed companion following obediently. "I've never witnessed anything quite like this in 40 years of banking," she whispered loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear, burning the fraudulent evidence right there on the floor. Absolutely brilliant strategy. A balding businessman in an expensive 3-piece suit joined the circle of spectators. "You should seriously run for mayor, Marcus. This entire city desperately needs more people with your kind of backbone and decisive action." Wellington preened visibly under the mounting attention and praise, adjusting his silk tie again and smoothing his perfectly styled hair. "Just performing my civic duty to protect honest, hard-working citizens. Can't allow these criminal elements to think they can waltz into respectable financial establishments." David's phone buzzed insistently in his pocket. He glanced discreetly at the illuminated screen. "Urgent. Emergency board meeting starting now. Where are you?" "Turn that device off immediately," Wellington snapped, his irritation growing. "Your partner in crime can wait indefinitely for your coordination call." "Actually," David said calmly, rising slowly from his seated position, "I really do need to take this particular call. It's quite important." Both security guards stepped forward immediately, hands instinctively moving toward their equipment. "Sit back down right now, sir," the first guard ordered firmly. "You're not going anywhere until police officers arrive to process you." The live stream viewer count hit 1,500 and continued climbing rapidly. The woman filming provided enthusiastic live commentary. "Oh my God, everyone, he's actually trying to leave. The scammer is attempting to escape before the cops arrive." Wellington threw his head back and laughed harshly, gesturing dramatically at the burned remains scattered across his floor. "Look carefully at that pathetic pile of ashes on my pristine marble floor. That pile of carbon was your big meal ticket, wasn't it? Your elaborate payday scheme. Now it's absolutely nothing but carbon particles and public humiliation." Sarah Mitchell shifted uncomfortably behind the customer service counter, her professional instincts screaming that something didn't add up correctly. "Marcus, maybe we should take a moment to verify certain details before—" "Verify exactly what?" Wellington cut her off dismissively. "The counterfeit check is completely destroyed. The stolen wallet is properly secured. Case definitively closed." Just then, a new arrival entered the bank's main entrance, an impeccably dressed woman in an expensive business suit carrying a sleek leather briefcase. She paused immediately, her keen eyes taking in the unusual crowd and the distinct, unsettling smell of burned paper lingering in the air. "Excuse me, what exactly happened here?" she asked a nearby customer with genuine concern. "The manager caught a professional scammer completely red-handed," the businessman explained excitedly, clearly enjoying his role as narrator. "Burned his obviously fake check right in front of everyone. The whole thing's going viral across social media platforms." The woman's eyes widened dramatically as she spotted David, sitting calmly in the chair, completely surrounded by security personnel and an increasingly hostile crowd. She immediately reached for her expensive phone. Wellington, noticing her filming, addressed her directly with theatrical flair. "Ma'am, you're witnessing genuine justice in action today. This individual brazenly attempted to defraud our respected institution with an obviously counterfeit financial instrument." $2.3 million, the Chanel customer added helpfully, her voice dripping with indignation. "Can you possibly imagine such nerve? The absolute audacity of these people!" A group of college students entered, immediately drawn to the commotion and the pungent smell of burned paper. They started filming with multiple devices, uploading content to TikTok, Snapchat, and Instagram simultaneously. David checked his watch again with deliberate, almost ritualistic precision. 2:58 p.m., his facial expression shifted almost imperceptibly, like someone making a critical decision that would change everything. The live stream comments, fueled by the spectacle, became increasingly hostile and alarmingly racially charged. "Lock his criminal ass up! Typical scammer behavior! Should have called the cops immediately!" At least the fake check got torched. Justice served live on television. "This is what we need more of." Wellington basked completely in the viral attention, his voice growing progressively louder and more theatrical with each passing moment. This is exactly what happens when hardworking, honest Americans finally stand up decisively to fraud and criminal behavior. We don't negotiate with criminals. We don't enable their destructive behavior. We destroy their tools and expose their elaborate lies for everyone to witness. The crowd murmured strong approval, creating an echo chamber of validation. Multiple phones continued recording from various angles, capturing David's remarkable composure against the dramatic backdrop of burned paper fragments and mounting public accusations. Sarah, however, noticed something increasingly odd. David's clothes might appear casual at first glance, but his shoes were clearly expensive Italian leather. His watch, too, appeared to be genuine Swiss craftsmanship, and the confident way he carried himself didn't match Wellington's criminal narrative at all. "Marcus," she whispered urgently, tugging at his sleeve, "something doesn't seem right about this entire situation." "Sarah, not now." Wellington waved her off dismissively, too intoxicated by his moment of viral fame and public adoration to listen to rational concerns. David's phone buzzed one final time, a silent, urgent vibration that carried the weight of impending change. He looked carefully at the screen, then at Wellington's smug, self-satisfied face, then down at the scattered ashes of what was once his check. For the first time since entering the bank, David Williams allowed himself to smile, a slow, genuine curve that held both amusement and a chilling promise. 2:59 p.m. The world, Marcus Wellington's world, was about to shift on its axis. "Mr. Wellington," David said clearly, his voice calm yet authoritative, cutting effortlessly through the noise of the excited crowd. "I believe it's time we had a proper professional conversation." Wellington laughed dismissively, spreading his arms wide to address his captivated audience. "Oh, now he wants to negotiate. Sorry, friend, but talking time ended permanently when you attempted to pass that obviously counterfeit check in my establishment." David reached slowly and deliberately into his jacket pocket. Both security guards tensed immediately, hands moving instinctively toward their protective equipment. "Move very carefully now," the first guard warned seriously, his eyes fixed on David's hand. David's smile widened slightly, a genuine glint of amusement dancing in his eyes. The expensive first-class boarding pass to Tokyo was visible for just a moment before his hand moved past it, purposefully, to retrieve something else entirely. Exactly 1 minute until his emergency board meeting began. 1 minute until Marcus Wellington's comfortable world changed forever. 3:00 p.m. The world shifted. David Williams pulled out a simple white business card, no flashy graphics, just elegant, understated typography, and placed it gently on the marble counter directly beside the scattered ashes of his burned check. The card landed with barely a whisper, a soft rustle against the polished stone, but the impact it was about to unleash would be seismic. The security guard, leaning forward to keep a close eye on David, glanced down, his eyes scanning the text. His face went completely white within seconds, the color draining from it as if yanked by an unseen force. The radio, still clutched in his nerveless hand, slipped, clattering loudly against the marble floor directly next to the burned check fragments. The sound echoed through the now silent lobby like a gunshot. The live stream woman, her previous swagger replaced by wide-eyed disbelief, zoomed in frantically with her phone camera, her hands visibly shaking with a mixture of excitement and utter shock. "Oh my God! Oh my God!" she whispered, her voice barely audible. The card's simple elegance was now magnified on thousands of screens across the globe. Comments exploded across the screen as thousands of viewers simultaneously read the text. "Wait, what? Is this actually real? CEO plot twist incoming! This can't be happening." The name, stark and undeniable, was now universally visible. David Williams, chairman and CEO, Williams Capital Group. Wellington, clinging desperately to his rapidly crumbling facade, forced a dismissive laugh, his voice now noticeably strained. "Oh, please, anyone can print fake business cards at Kinko's for $5. What's next in your bag of tricks? A fake passport? Counterfeit driver's license to match your stolen credit cards?" His words, however, lacked their former theatrical confidence, betraying the gnawing unease that had begun to take root. Sweat beaded on his forehead, despite the bank's efficient air conditioning. David, ignoring Wellington's desperate bluster, reached into his jacket pocket again. This time, he produced a sleek, expensive tablet, a device whose build quality alone suggested a world far beyond Kinko's printouts. With practiced ease and obvious familiarity, he opened the First National Bank mobile application. He navigated confidently to a section most customers never saw or even knew existed, the board member portal. His fingers moved across the touchscreen with the practiced confidence of someone who used this system daily, intimately familiar with every menu and function. The login page appeared in crisp corporate blue, corporate board access, authorized personnel only, restricted access. David entered his credentials without hesitation, muscle memory guiding his movements. The screen refreshed smoothly, revealing his detailed profile in crisp, undeniable corporate formatting. The words appeared, clear as day, for all to see, for all the thousands watching online to absorb. David Williams, principal shareholder, 70% ownership stake, Williams Capital Group Holdings. Position, chairman of the board of directors, board member since January 2018. Next scheduled meeting, Tuesday, 3 p.m. Emergency session, customer service review, security clearance, level 10, full executive access. Sarah Mitchell gasped audibly, her perfectly manicured hand flying to cover her mouth in shock, her eyes wide with dawning horror. "Oh my God, Marcus," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Do you see what that says? Do you understand what this means? That's obviously sophisticated fake software." Wellington interrupted desperately, his voice cracking, his theatrical flair completely evaporated. His previous confidence had dissolved into a desperate, pathetic attempt to cling to his delusion. Sweat poured down his face now, betraying the panic that had seized him. Anyone with basic computer skills can create fake screens on a tablet. This is just another elaborate layer of his sophisticated con game. He gestured wildly, trying to regain control, but the authority had already slipped from his grasp, replaced by a desperate, flailing fear. David, with deliberate slowness, turned the tablet screen toward the growing crowd, ensuring every pixel of the damning information was visible. The live stream camera captured every detail in crystal-clear high definition. The woman filming, her voice breathless with disbelief, provided real-time commentary. "Guys, this screen says he owns 73% of the entire bank. Is this actually real? Someone please tell me this is really happening." The viewer count exploded exponentially, rocketing past 2,000 as the video was shared frantically across multiple social media platforms simultaneously. Comments streamed like digital wildfire, too fast for human comprehension. "Holy sh! He actually owns the bank! Manager is so completely fired! This is the best plot twist in internet history. Wellington is absolutely dead! Someone screen recorded this now." A well-dressed woman near the investment desk pulled out her phone and started a second live stream to her own followers. A college student began uploading clips to TikTok with captions like, "Bank owner gets disrespected," and "Plot twist of the century." David's voice, now imbued with a supernatural calm and an undeniable authority, cut through the mounting chaos. "Mr. Wellington, would you like to know exactly what that check you burned so dramatically for your audience actually contained?" Wellington's face began showing the first visible cracks of genuine uncertainty, the smugness replaced by a sickly pale hue. But his immense ego, and the humiliation he now felt in front of a global audience, forced him to double down desperately. "I don't care what elaborate lies you've printed on fake documents or programmed into stolen tablets. That check was obviously counterfeit, and I destroyed it properly to protect my honest customers from—" "It was my quarterly dividend payment," David stated with matter-of-fact precision, his voice a quiet, deadly counterpoint to Wellington's bluster. "From this bank to me, as the majority shareholder and owner." The silence that followed was absolutely deafening. Even the hum of the air conditioning seemed to pause, holding its breath. David swiped expertly to another screen on his tablet, revealing detailed financial records with official bank letterhead and security watermarks. Williams Capital Group quarterly dividend Q4 2024, $2,347,000. Authorized by Board Resolution 847B, approved by Corporate Treasury. Issued Tuesday, December 15th. He looked down thoughtfully at the burned fragments scattered across the expensive marble floor, then back at Wellington with an expression of almost scholarly curiosity. "You just burned $2,347,000 of my personal money, Mr. Wellington, on camera, in front of multiple witnesses, with thousands watching online." Wellington's face had progressed rapidly from confused to pale to an alarming shade of green. The Italian leather wallet containing David's identification and credit cards suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds in his jacket pocket. His mouth opened and closed repeatedly, without producing a sound. That can't possibly be," Wellington finally stammered, his theatrical confidence evaporating like smoke in the wind. David, without missing a beat, opened yet another application on his tablet with practiced familiarity. The bank's internal personnel directory. He navigated through the system with the obvious ease of someone who had used these tools countless times before, someone with unlimited access. "Marcus Wellington," David read aloud from the detailed employee screen, his voice clear and unyielding. "Branch manager, downtown Chicago location. Employee employee ID 4847. Annual salary $127,000. Hired March 15th, 2018. Performance rating, satisfactory. Direct supervisor, regional manager Jennifer Hayes. Emergency contact, Linda Wellington, spouse." He looked up from the tablet, his gaze piercing, directly into Wellington's increasingly panicked eyes. "You've been working for me for exactly 6 years and 8 months, Marcus." The elderly Chanel customer, who had been so vocally supportive and encouraging just minutes before, began backing away slowly toward the exit, her face etched with a dawning horror. The businessman who enthusiastically suggested Wellington run for mayor stared in growing shock, his expression reflecting the horrifying realization of what he had witnessed. 3 teenagers who had been filming excitedly now stood frozen, their phones still recording, but their expressions had shifted from entertainment to profound shock. One whispered to her friend, "Did we just watch someone burn their boss's money?" The live stream audience had exploded past 3,500 viewers, with the number climbing every second. The comments section had become completely unreadable due to the sheer speed of responses. Fire emojis, shocked face emojis, and endless variations of "oh my god" and "this is insane" filled the screen continuously. Sarah Mitchell, finding her voice first, spoke in a rush, her words tumbling out. "Mr. Williams, I am so incredibly deeply sorry about this entire situation. We had absolutely no idea who you were, and this should never have happened." "Of course you didn't know," David responded with a gentle understanding that somehow made his words even more impactful. "How could you possibly know? I dress casually when I visit branches. I don't announce my position or wave my credentials around. I come in like any other customer because I genuinely believe every single customer deserves respect, regardless of their appearance, clothing, or account balance." He stood slowly, tablet still in hand, and surveyed the crowd of customers who had been so eager to watch his public humiliation just minutes before. Many were now studying their shoes intently or suddenly finding their phones extremely interesting, avoiding his gaze. "But here's what troubles me most deeply," David continued, his voice remaining unnaturally calm despite the enormous magnitude of what had just happened. This incident wasn't really about a check amount or banking procedures or security protocols. This was fundamentally about assumptions, about immediate judgment, about who you thought deserved basic human respect and who didn't. Wellington seemed to physically shrink before everyone's eyes, his expensive suit suddenly looking several sizes too large for his diminishing frame. "Sir, if I had known who you were," Wellington began desperately, his voice a pathetic croak. "That's exactly the problem," David interrupted quietly but firmly. "If you had known who I was, what about who I am as a human being? What about treating every customer with dignity, regardless of who they might be or what they might own?" The burned check ashes, still scattered across the marble floor, seemed to mock Wellington, a $2.3 million mistake that would haunt him forever. David checked his expensive watch one final time. 3:02 p.m. I'm now 2 minutes late for my emergency board meeting, which was originally called specifically to discuss customer service standards at this branch location. He looked directly at Wellington with an expression that managed to be simultaneously disappointed and decisively final. I wonder what we'll be discussing now. 3:03 p.m., the reckoning began. David Williams opened a new application on his tablet with the deliberate precision of someone accessing tools he knew intimately. The corporate financial dashboard loaded instantly, displaying real-time data that made Wellington's remaining color drain completely from his face, leaving him a ghastly, ashen shade, like water from a broken dam. "Let me share some concrete numbers with you, Marcus," David said, his voice maintaining that unsettling calm that somehow made his words more terrifying than shouting. First National Bank generated exactly $807 million in total revenue last year. My investment group, Williams Capital, contributed $623 million of that through our majority stake and associated business relationships. The live stream audience, now approaching 4,000 viewers and climbing steadily, watched in stunned silence as David swiped methodically through detailed financial reports with corporate logos and official watermarks. Comments flooded the screen faster than moderators could process. "He's got the actual numbers. This is better than any movie I've ever seen. Wellington is getting absolutely destroyed with data. CEO using spreadsheets as weapons." Sarah Mitchell stood completely frozen behind the customer service counter, realizing she was witnessing corporate history unfold in real time before her eyes. The burned check fragments scattered at her feet represented more than just destroyed paper. They were physical evidence of a catastrophic mistake that would reshape everything about how this bank operated. "This specific downtown branch," David continued calmly, consulting his tablet with the ease of someone who reviewed these numbers regularly, "processes approximately $45 million in monthly transactions. That's $540 million annually flowing through this location. Your personal annual salary, Marcus, comes to exactly $127,000. Money that ultimately derives from the profits generated by my substantial investment in this institution." Wellington's mouth worked soundlessly, opening and closing like a fish desperately gasping for air. The Italian leather wallet in his jacket pocket, David's wallet that he had stolen in front of witnesses, felt heavier and more incriminating with each passing second, a leaden weight of evidence. David swiped expertly to another screen, revealing the comprehensive corporate governance documents with official legal letterhead. "I want everyone in this room and watching online to understand the precise legal framework we are operating under here. Section 4.2 of our employee handbook explicitly states that discrimination by bank personnel violates both federal law and corporate policy." He read directly from the tablet in a clear, authoritative voice. "Any employee found guilty of discriminatory behavior toward customers based on race, gender, appearance, or perceived economic status faces immediate disciplinary action up to and including termination with cause and forfeiture of benefits." The elderly Chanel customer, who had enthusiastically applauded Wellington's discriminatory actions just minutes earlier, began edging nervously toward the main exit. Other customers followed her lead like a retreating army, suddenly remembering urgent appointments elsewhere, or pressing business that required their immediate attention. Clause 7.8 grants board members, specifically me as chairman, the unilateral authority to suspend personnel immediately pending full investigation and disciplinary proceedings. David's finger traced the specific text on his screen. Article 12 requires that all recorded incidents of discrimination become permanent, irrevocable parts of employee records, reportable to state and federal banking authorities, and discoverable in background checks. Wellington finally found his voice, though it emerged as a pathetic croak. "Mr. Williams, please. I had no idea who you were. I never meant—" "But here's the most legally significant part, Marcus," David interrupted with gentle but devastating precision. "The willful destruction of financial instruments, specifically burning a legitimate bank check in front of witnesses, constitutes a federal crime under Section 1341 of the U.S. Criminal Code, mail fraud, and destruction of financial documents. The penalties include fines up to $1 million and imprisonment up to 20 years. The live stream viewer count exploded past 5,000 as people shared the video frantically across every available social platform. #BankBurnsCheck was trending nationwide alongside #KarmaIsReal, #JusticeServed, and #Williams vs. Wellington. News outlets were beginning to pick up the story in real time. David stood slowly from his chair, tablet firmly in hand, and walked deliberately toward Wellington with measured steps. Each footfall echoed against the marble lobby like a countdown to final judgment. The distance between them closed with inexorable certainty. "So, let me present your available options with complete clarity, Mr. Wellington." David's voice carried the unmistakable weight of absolute corporate authority. Option 1. You immediately issue a comprehensive public apology to every person in this room and to the thousands watching online via live stream. You publicly acknowledge your discriminatory behavior, submit willingly to mandatory sensitivity training, accept a formal written reprimand in your permanent file, and continue your employment under strict probationary status. Wellington nodded frantically, visible relief flooding his pale features like sunrise after a terrifying nightmare. However, David continued with devastating calm, and Wellington's face immediately fell again, the momentary relief replaced by a fresh wave of dread. Given the severity of your actions and the serious federal implications, Option 1 also requires you to accept immediate demotion from branch manager to assistant manager with a corresponding 40% salary reduction. You will personally reimburse the bank $50,000 for the cost of replacing the destroyed check and processing this incident, and you will perform 200 hours of unpaid community service at financial literacy centers in underserved communities. The crowd murmured among themselves as they processed the harsh but undeniably fair terms. Sarah Mitchell discreetly pulled out her phone, apparently taking detailed notes or recording everything for official documentation purposes. Option 2? David's voice hardened almost imperceptibly, like steel wrapped in silk, the finality of his tone leaving no room for negotiation. Is immediate termination for cause, complete forfeiture of all pension benefits under the discrimination and property destruction clauses, and formal referral to federal authorities for criminal prosecution. Given that your discriminatory actions were recorded by multiple witnesses and broadcast live to thousands of viewers, the evidence against you is overwhelming and irrefutable. Wellington's knees visibly shook beneath his expensive trousers. The stolen wallet in his pocket seemed to burn against his chest like a brand, a heavy, incriminating weight. Furthermore, David continued relentlessly, consulting another screen on his tablet. Termination for cause would include immediate notification to the National Banking Association's Disciplinary Board, effectively ending your career in financial services permanently. The viral nature of this incident ensures that your name will be associated with this discriminatory behavior indefinitely, following you to any future employer. David opened another application on his tablet, the bank's internal human resources communication system. I can send termination papers to HR right now, Marcus. Your access to all computer systems would be revoked within 5 minutes. Security would escort you from the building immediately, and your personal items would be boxed and mailed to your home address within 48 hours. The live stream audience watched in absolute fascination as David demonstrated the swift, decisive power of actual corporate consequences. Comments streamed continuously. This is what real accountability looks like. Give him option 2. Make him pay for what he did. Justice in real time. But there's a third consideration that weighs heavily on my mind, David added thoughtfully, looking down at the scattered ashes of his destroyed check. His voice softened slightly, but the impact of his words was no less profound. The $247 million you burned represents not just my personal money, but funds that could have funded financial literacy programs, small business loans for minority entrepreneurs, educational scholarships for disadvantaged students, and community development projects. Your prejudice didn't just hurt me personally, it damaged the entire community this bank exists to serve. Wellington's face crumpled visibly, the full weight of his actions finally penetrating his consciousness. Sir, please, I have a family to support, a mortgage payment, children in college. I can't lose everything over one terrible mistake. One mistake? David's voice sharpened noticeably for the first time, cutting through the air like a blade. Marcus, you didn't accidentally burn my check. You didn't mistakenly treat me with disrespect. You made deliberate, calculated choices based on the color of my skin and your prejudiced assumptions about my worth as a human being. He gestured directly toward the live stream camera where thousands continued watching this unprecedented confrontation. And you performed your discrimination proudly, theatrically, for a live audience. Washia, you wanted witnesses to your bigotry. You actively sought validation for your prejudice. Well, congratulations, you got exactly what you wanted. The security guards stood motionless and confused, uncertain whether they should still be treating David as a suspect or Wellington as the primary problem. The burned check fragments scattered between them told the complete story of this dramatic power reversal. "I need your final decision right now, Marcus," David stated with firm finality, his eyes unwavering. "Public apology, community service, demotion, financial reimbursement, and probation, or immediate termination, criminal referral, and complete career destruction. You have exactly 60 seconds to choose your future." David raised his tablet meaningfully, his finger hovering directly over what appeared to be official termination paperwork. The wall clock read 3:07 p.m. with mechanical precision. "Choose very wisely," David advised quietly, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. "Because unlike the careless assumptions you made about me, this decision will define exactly who you actually are as a person." Wellington stared down at the ashes of the check he had burned so proudly, finally understanding that his moment of prejudiced pride and public performance had cost him everything unless he swallowed that pride completely and begged for mercy. The 60-second countdown began with devastating precision. 3:08 p.m., the choice and its consequences. Wellington's legs buckled slightly as the 60-second countdown reached 30. The weight of thousands watching online, the burned check ashes at his feet, and David's unwavering stare combined into a crushing realization of his complete vulnerability. "I choose option 1, Wellington whispered hoarsely, his voice barely audible above the hum of the air conditioning. "I apologize completely to everyone." David lowered his tablet, but didn't put it away. "Louder, Marcus. The people filming need to hear you clearly. And face the cameras, not me." Wellington turned toward the live stream, his face pale and drawn, his eyes filled with a raw, agonizing humiliation. The woman filming adjusted her angle to capture his apology in high definition. Over 6,000 people now watched in real time. "I, Marcus Wellington," he began, his voice cracking with emotion, "sincerely apologize to Mr. David Williams for my discriminatory behavior. I made racist assumptions based on his appearance. I destroyed his personal property. I treated him with disrespect and prejudice that has no place in banking or society." The live stream comments exploded. "Too little, too late. At least he's admitting it. This is painful to watch. Good, make him suffer. Continue," David instructed quietly. Wellington's hands shook visibly. "I apologize to every customer who witnessed my behavior and to everyone watching online. My actions were wrong, illegal, and inexcusable. I accept full responsibility and will work to become a better person." Sarah Mitchell began typing rapidly on her computer, documenting everything for corporate records. The remaining customers watched in fascination as a man's career transformed before their eyes. David opened his tablet again, navigating to what appeared to be an employee disciplinary form. "Sarah, please prepare Marcus's new employment contract reflecting his demotion to assistant manager and salary reduction. HR will need documentation within the hour." "Yes, Mr. Williams," Sarah responded immediately, her professional demeanor now fully aligned with David's unassailable authority. David swiped to another screen showing the bank's policy manual. "Effective immediately, this branch will implement new customer service protocols. Sarah, I want you to take detailed notes for corporate distribution." The live stream audience watched as David began reshaping the bank's operations in real time. Comments shifted from mockery to genuine interest. "He's actually making changes. This is how you fix systemic problems. Smart CEO moves." "Oh, first, the Dignity First protocol," David announced, consulting his tablet, his voice now a blueprint for systemic change. "Every customer receives identical service regardless of appearance, clothing, or perceived economic status. Staff members must greet customers within 30 seconds and maintain professional courtesy throughout all interactions." Wellington stood motionless, still processing his dramatic fall from manager to assistant manager. The wallet in his pocket, David's wallet, remained a burning reminder of his compounding mistakes, a physical manifestation of his profound misjudgment. "Second, we're implementing the Respect Monitor system," David continued. "All customer interactions will be recorded and analyzed monthly by an independent third-party civil rights organization. Any patterns of bias or discrimination will trigger immediate investigation and corrective action." Sarah typed furiously, capturing every detail. "Should I schedule the technology installation, Mr. Williams?" she asked, her voice laced with newfound enthusiasm. "Yes, and make it priority 1. I want cameras operational within 48 hours. David swiped to another screen. Third, mandatory quarterly training for all staff, unconscious bias recognition, cultural sensitivity, and professional customer service standards. The elderly Chanel customer who had started to leave paused near the door to listen. Her earlier enthusiasm for Wellington's discrimination had transformed into an uncomfortable, contemplative silence. These workshops will include guest speakers from affected communities, David continued. Staff performance reviews will now include specific metrics for equitable customer treatment. Raises and promotions will depend partially on these scores. David walked slowly toward the scattered ashes of his burned check, his expensive shoes crunching slightly on the fragments, the sound a subtle percussion of consequence. Fourth, we're establishing anonymous customer feedback systems, physical kiosks in every branch, plus a dedicated hotline with direct access to my office. Wellington watched helplessly as his former authority crumbled into systematic accountability. The live stream viewer count approached 7,000 as news outlets began picking up the story. Fifth, David's voice carried increasing conviction, monthly community advisory meetings. Representatives from local organizations will meet with branch management to discuss service quality and address concerns before they escalate. He knelt down and carefully gathered some of the burned check fragments into his hand. Sarah, I want these ashes preserved as evidence for the incident report. Also, we'll be creating a memorial display in the lobby. A memorial, sir? Sarah asked, confused. David stood, ashes in his palm like dark snow, a framed reminder titled The Cost of Assumptions. These ashes will serve as a permanent reminder that prejudice destroys more than just paper. It destroys trust, community, and human dignity. The live stream comments became increasingly supportive. Turn trash into treasure. Teaching moment for everyone. This guy is brilliant. Real leadership. Wellington finally found the courage to speak. Mr. Williams, I still have your wallet. I'm sorry I took it. David extended his free hand. Thank you for returning it, Marcus. Wellington retrieved the leather wallet from his jacket and placed it carefully in David's hand. The symbolic transfer of power completed his transformation from aggressor to subordinate, from arrogant manager to chastened employee. Now about your community service, David continued, consulting his tablet again, his voice firm yet educative. You'll be working at the Southside Financial Literacy Center every Saturday for the next 2 years. You'll help families understand banking, credit, and financial planning. Yes, sir, Wellington responded meekly, the fight entirely gone from him. Specifically, David added with quiet, pointed emphasis, you'll be working with families who look exactly like me, families who have experienced discrimination in financial services. You'll learn their stories, understand their struggles, and hopefully develop the empathy you clearly lack. The weight of this assignment settled over Wellington like a heavy blanket. 2 years of facing the very people he had prejudiced against, learning their humanity, confronting his biases weekly. Your first training session is this Saturday at 9 o'clock back at the quarters at 9 o'clock a.m., David stated firmly. Mrs. Johnson, the center director, is expecting you. She's a 67-year-old African-American grandmother who's been fighting financial discrimination for 40 years. I suggest you listen carefully to everything she teaches you. Sarah finished typing and looked up. Mr. Williams, should I notify corporate headquarters about these policy changes? Already done, David replied, showing his tablet screen. I sent the implementation order 20 minutes ago. Every First National branch will adopt these standards within 90 days. The live stream audience, now captivated, realized they had witnessed more than just individual justice. They had seen systemic change born from one man's prejudice and another man's profound, strategic response. Comments reflected this understanding. This is how you fix racism, from burned check to burned bias. Policy change in real time. David looked around the lobby, taking in the faces of customers, staff, and security who had witnessed this transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, what happened here today wasn't just about me or Marcus. It was about the assumptions we make, the respect we deny, and the changes we can create when we choose justice over revenge. He held up the ashes of his burned check. These ashes represent $2.3 million, but more importantly, they represent the cost of prejudice. Tomorrow, they'll represent the foundation of something better. The clock on the wall read 3:15 p.m. In just 12 minutes, David had transformed humiliation into education, discrimination into policy reform, and personal pain into systemic healing. Wellington stood quietly, processing the magnitude of his fall and the unexpected mercy of his punishment. His career lay in ashes, like the check he burned. But unlike the check, his career might still be salvageable through genuine, profound change. "Any questions about your new responsibilities, Marcus?" David asked. Wellington shook his head slowly. "No, sir. Thank you for giving me a second chance." David nodded once, then turned toward the exit. "Don't thank me yet. Thank me in 2 years, when you've learned to see people as human beings instead of assumptions." The memorial display sat prominently in the First National lobby, a beacon of change drawing visitors from across the country. Behind protective glass, the preserved ashes of David Williams's burned check rested on black velvet, accompanied by a brass plaque reading, "The cost of assumptions, in memory of prejudice destroyed by dignity." It wasn't merely an artifact, it was a conversation starter, a silent testament to a pivotal moment. Marcus Wellington arrived early for his Saturday morning shift at the Southside Financial Literacy Center, as he had every week for 26 consecutive weeks. The man who once burned a check in arrogant discrimination now carried educational materials for families he previously viewed with suspicion, his posture less rigid, his movements more humble. "Morning, Mrs. Johnson." Wellington greeted the center director warmly, his voice carrying none of its former condescension, but a genuine respect. "Good morning, Marcus." The 67-year-old grandmother responded with a knowing smile, her eyes twinkling with a wisdom born of decades of fighting for justice. "The Rodriguez family is waiting for you in room 3. Their small business loan was denied yesterday. They need help understanding why." Wellington nodded and walked toward the conference room, passing walls covered with thank you letters from families he had helped navigate the labyrinthine banking system. His transformation hadn't happened overnight. It required confronting his biases, one conversation, one story, one moment of empathy at a time. Each day was a lesson, each family a mirror reflecting his past self, urging him towards a better future. The ripple effect of that fateful Tuesday spread far beyond the bank's lobby. The viral video of David Williams's response to discrimination had reached 15 million views across all platforms. #BankBurnsCheck became more than a hashtag. It became a movement, a global discussion examining assumptions and privilege in everyday interactions. Dr. Sarah Lane, a sociology professor at Northwestern University, incorporated the incident into her curriculum on systemic racism. "This case study demonstrates how individual prejudice becomes institutional discrimination," she explained to her graduate students, "and how leadership, when wielded with wisdom, can create immediate systemic change." The footage had been translated into 12 languages and used in corporate training programs worldwide. Companies across industries adopted variations of David's Dignity First protocol, recognizing that respect isn't optional. It's essential for business success and for the very fabric of society. Williams Capital Group's approach to discrimination had become the gold standard for financial institutions. The independent monitoring system, implemented with swift precision, identified and addressed 47 incidents of bias across their network in the first quarter alone, preventing escalation through early intervention and fostering a culture of vigilance. "We've seen a 34% increase in minority customer satisfaction," reported Jennifer Hayes, the regional manager who now oversaw sensitivity training implementation with a renewed sense of purpose. "More importantly, we've seen a cultural shift. Employees actively watch for bias and correct it immediately, understanding that the core values of the institution demand it." The quarterly training programs evolved beyond mere compliance into genuine education. Guest speakers from affected communities shared personal stories of discrimination, creating emotional connections and fostering empathy that policy manuals alone could never achieve. Performance reviews now included customer feedback scores specifically related to respectful treatment, tying career advancement directly to the equitable treatment of every individual. First National Bank's stock price increased 12% in 6 months, driven partially by positive publicity, but primarily by an expanded customer base and improved community relationships built on trust and respect. Other banks, witnessing the tangible benefits, began adopting similar policies, creating an industry-wide transformation, a slow but steady pivot towards a more equitable future. Wellington's journey continued, a testament to the possibility of change. The man who once stood triumphantly over burning ashes now sat humbly across from Maria Rodriguez, explaining loan requirements with patience and empathy. "The bank denied your application because of the debt-to-income ratio," Wellington explained gently, his voice devoid of judgment. "But there are steps we can take to improve your position. Let's create a plan." Maria's eyes filled with gratitude. You're the first bank person who actually listened to our situation instead of just saying no." Wellington felt the familiar weight of his past behavior, a constant, poignant reminder. Every grateful family reminded him of the people he had once dismissed, the dreams he had crushed through assumptions. His 200 hours of community service became 400, then 600, then more. The formal requirement ended, but the learning, the deep, transformative learning, continued indefinitely. "I was wrong about many things," Wellington admitted during his monthly check-in with David Williams, his gaze steady, honest. "I thought success meant excluding people. I learned it means including them." David nodded thoughtfully, a quiet understanding passing between them. "That's wisdom that can't be taught in training manuals, Marcus. It has to be earned through genuine relationships." Visitors to the First National Law lobby often paused at the memorial display, reading the accompanying explanation of events. Children asked parents about the ashes behind glass, their innocent questions prompting profound discussions. Adults shared stories of their own experiences with discrimination, finding a common ground in vulnerability. The display included a QR code linking to the full video and a comprehensive resource page about unconscious bias. Educational materials explained how assumptions become actions, and actions, when unchecked, become systems of exclusion. "Those ashes represent more than money," David reflected during a recorded interview that accompanied the display. "They represent every time someone's worth was judged by their appearance, every time potential was dismissed by prejudice, every opportunity destroyed by assumptions." The memorial had inspired similar displays in corporations, universities, and community centers nationwide. The phrase, "the cost of assumptions," appeared on everything from coffee mugs to conference room posters, serving as daily reminders to examine our biases, to look beyond the surface. The Williams Standards, as they became known, spread far beyond banking. Retail stores, healthcare facilities, government offices, and educational institutions adopted similar protocols. The combination of real-time monitoring, regular training, and community accountability created measurable improvements in customer service across demographics. A study by the National Bureau of Economic Research found that businesses implementing Williams-style protocols experienced average increases of 23% in minority customer satisfaction and 18% in overall customer retention. The business case for dignity became undeniable, proving that ethical behavior was not just morally right, but economically sound. Technology companies developed sophisticated bias detection software based on David's monitoring systems. Artificial intelligence now helped identify patterns of discriminatory behavior that human oversight might miss, creating an ever-evolving safeguard against prejudice. David Williams didn't consider himself a hero of the story. "I simply refused to let prejudice stand unchallenged," he explained during university speaking engagements, his humility as powerful as his authority. "The real heroes are people like Marcus who chose to grow instead of retreat." His quarterly dividend checks still arrived at the same downtown branch, but now they were processed with the respect every customer deserved. David often visited unannounced, observing interactions and ensuring standards remained high, a silent guardian of the dignity he championed. The first-class boarding pass to Tokyo that Wellington never noticed led to a business expansion that created 300 jobs in underserved communities, a testament to forward-thinking leadership. David's calm, strategic response to discrimination created opportunities that his anger, however justified, never could have achieved. The lesson of the burned check extends beyond corporate policies and training programs. It challenges every individual to examine their assumptions, question their biases, and choose dignity over discrimination. "Your voice matters, your story counts," David emphasizes in his speaking engagements. "Every time you witness unfairness and choose to speak up, you create change. Every time you treat someone with dignity when others show disrespect, you build bridges." The movement continues through individual actions. Social media fills with stories of people choosing inclusion over exclusion, understanding over assumption, growth over grudges. #FireproofWorth becomes a rallying cry for protecting human dignity. The ashes in that memorial display aren't just remnants of prejudice. They are fertilizer for growth. From destruction comes creation. From humiliation comes education. From individual pain comes systemic healing. That's how you turn a burned check into a burned bridge to discrimination.